Hello. So I was trying to figure out what I should talk about today. And given the fact that the first two episodes that I did were about shame and fear and how they prevent us from getting to where we want it or doing the things that we want to do, I thought that it made a lot of sense to talk now about exactly that, about doing the things that we love and why it is the only thing that makes sense. When I think about what I want to do, I really think about what I want to do with my time. And that question really means, what does life mean for me? Means for me. Because if you think about it, though we have a limited amount of time, and that puts us in a position of having to actually move and do something, regardless of whatever situation we're in, the fact of the matter is that what informs that decision is the underlying principles or the underlying beliefs that we have. Society, for the most part, is the contrast and the relation between different individual modes of thinking, meaning that each one of us has an inner psychic reality where things have a certain structure. Society informs that, meaning that when we are born to a certain degree, we are molded by the ideas of our societies. But then, as we grow up, we start to either question them or investigate about them, uh, or we believe them. So, in a sense, we start to have our own opinion. We start to form it, and through our experiences, we start to become, let's say, a unique position in the world. And then basically the process starts again. We download whatever we believe into our ways of life and to the choices that we have, and so on. But today I wanted to concentrate into, let's say, the inner aspect of that, because even though the societal part has a lot of importance and there's like 1,000 things that can be said about it, for me, in terms of talking about life and meaning, to really know why you're doing the things that you're doing seems to be the most crucial aspect of any person's life. If you understand what you're doing or why it is that you're doing something, then you actually feel more comfortable doing those things. So life really is a quest for meaning, if you think about it. We want to feel meaningful. That's why religion plays such an important role, or spirituality plays such an important role in our lives. Life can be divided into two aspects: the profane one, meaning the everyday sort of thing, the routines that we do, the societal things that we intervene, and then there's the sacred aspect, which is, let's say, the fundamental, the existential, the ontological aspects of why we do what we do, or who we are as an alive creature, as a living creature. And they're related, as I said, in the same way that society and individual is. But from our point of view, if we don't have a sacred aspect, meaning something that is essentially meaningful to us, then the profane world becomes a prison, because it's like a functional, kind of like mechanic point of view. It's just there. That's why there's like a lot of criticism to nihilist supporters, or nihilism in itself, meaning that it's just for nothing. And maybe there is a point to nihilism, though I do believe that it is presented in such a crude way that we think about it as meaninglessness in the way that Western people understand that, which means that it's a catastrophic thing. For things not to have meaning, meaning that there's not something outside of them, implies that there's no purpose in doing them. And that's why we have such a tricky relationship with religion or spirituality, because that's the channel, as I mentioned, in which we connect to the sacred. But Western culture has a big divide to close in terms of reconnecting with the sacred, because the modalities or the forms that we've been presented are either outdated or ridiculous for most of us. So where does that put us? Beyond the fact of whatever beliefs or specific beliefs we have, those beliefs inform our decisions, and because those beliefs inform our decisions, they inform the things that we do, and therefore how we spend our time. So in my case, for example, personally, the conclusion that I've gotten out of life is that whatever it is, because it is a mystery, and whoever tells you that they know what's going on, they don't know, because nobody knows. It's an opportunity, and I am stealing this from a guy called Terence McKenna. And it is opportunity to deploy our imagination into the things that we're completely absorbed by, interested in, and the things that we're passionate about. So the question is a simultaneous one. What do you want to do with your life, and what does life mean to you? And maybe it should be the other way around. What does life mean to you, and what do you want to do in the face of that? In my case, this opportunity that I see life as is also informed by a peculiar idea that life is a sort of dream. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that life, though it's a metaphor, and that's important, I don't want to go Inception here, it helps us feel the vibe to it, or the underlying logic in it. We don't know where we come from, or where we're going, or if this is the only time that we're going to be alive or conscious, or if there is an afterlife or anything of that, like of those metaphysical assumptions. There will always be a mystery, because either through shamanic practices, psychedelics, spiritual religions, and traditions, though they have, let's say, inklings of what may be happening, we really don't know what it is and what's the shape of it, the real shape of it. So in the face of that, we have to understand the principles of where we are. We know that life is finite, and we know that it's actually not moving anywhere. For the most part, it's only moving somewhere else, which means that it's only transforming itself time and time again. So that puts us in the position of just paying attention to the present, because it doesn't matter where it's going to be in 1,000 years or in 100 years. It matters where we are now and what we do now. So this limited amount of time that we have is a gorgeous spectacle, an opportunity to be, in the deepest sense of the word. And since that's a beautiful thing to go through, it doesn't make any sense to use it just to do the things that we should be doing, or that are expected of us. Imagine that you're really in a dream, and that instead of a gorgeous dream, and that instead of exploring the things that you want to explore and learn the things that you want to learn, you simply restrain yourself to do the things that you think you have to do, or the things that you yourself have deemed as responsible or safe. And it doesn't make a lot of sense as a dream. Now, that's how I use it. Not to be an irresponsible schizophrenic that goes out there and just kind of like doesn't obey the societal norms, because that's not, first of all, it's not a smart thing to do or an elegant way to live. But it does help me to be free of the constraints that society puts us in terms of what do we want to do. At least to the extent of wanting to explore our lives. Nobody wants to struggle financially, and nobody wants to be mocked by their friends, if they are friends. But after a certain degree of financial security, it doesn't make any sense to give your back to the things that you want to do, because that's the core of your being. In a very essential way, doing and living are one and the same. So if you're not doing what you love, you're not being what you love. And that puts you in an awkward position because you're not the center of your life. And make no mistake, you are the center of your life. Always. It doesn't matter what happens. You are always at the center. You're always it's the sine qua non. It's a Latin word that, or concept that means without with, that which nothing else can happen without. That which nothing can happen if that's not present. That which cannot be without that. That which is necessary in order for anything else to be. There we go. And another way that for me to see this is an idea from a philosopher called Alan Watts, and I'm paraphrasing here, who said that if we don't live searching and doing the things that we love, we're merely living for things that we don't want to do and to obtain things that we really don't care about. And at the end of the day, we're simply passing that torch to our kids, who will go through the same cycle again of doing the things that they don't want to do or care about and finding no meaning in them. So and I do understand that there's a logic of being responsible, of course. Like, you cannot live your life just wandering around, which is, I guess, the danger of wanting to fly, right? That's the whole idea of the myth of Icarus, or the story of Icarus. Myth of Icarus, that you cannot fly too close to the sun. You'll get burned, or your wings. You get it. You'll get fucked. But there is a purpose, because the whole story starts that a father teaches his son to fly. But he only warns him not to fly too high, too close to the sun, to be balanced. And that's the idea. But to fly, to escape from prison. Meaning the existential prison. Now, why is that such a hard thing to do? Follow your passions. Well, shame and fear are two good reasons. But also because we want to showcase our success to our friends. And there's certain things that we're interested in that may or may not be as easy to showcase or to build a career from. There are a set of activities and professions that our society deemed as more valuable right now. That changes over time. For example, it's crazy for me that a soccer player gets paid like 100,000 times more, or whatever it is, than a doctor. But that's the way that our society is. There's no underlying logic. It's just how societies move about. So it's easier to conform to one of those jobs, even if you're not that interested in them, because it provides you a secure, stable life. And though there is a value to those professions and those activities in themselves, if you're not engaged with them, if they don't mean anything to you, then you don't have a core, like a core of meaning where you can actually push. And that makes the whole point invalid. Sacrifice, effort, aim, focus only makes sense for a person if they really want to do something. If not, they're just either going to hate what they're doing, or they're just going to force themselves, thinking that like the benefits that come from doing that thing are better than the thing in itself. That's why so many people work for jobs that pay a lot of money, but they don't care about what they're working in, which seems a foolish way to live. Because what you do is way more than the little vacations that you have, or the car that you drive in. You can be miserable in the car that you drive, or you could be super happy in the car that you drive in. It doesn't matter what car you're in. It matters if you're happy. That's why there's so many people that don't understand when millionaires say that they wish that everybody could have so much money, to understand that that doesn't give you happiness. We tend to think, or at least a lot of people tend to think, that are not in such a privileged position, a financial position, that doesn't make any sense, because all of our worries are financial. But at the end of the day, that's one of our worries. The deepest, most pervasive worry that we have is if we're doing something that matters to us. And that's the whole point. And just to be clear, when I talk about dreams and professions, I'm not talking about this idealistic, naive, just kind of like one specific static thing that we want when we're like 15. It doesn't matter the age, really. But I'm talking about an endeavor that we're completely connected with, or that we find ourselves so fascinated by that we cannot stop doing it, regardless of the fact that that's our main source of income or not. And we find ourselves doing that time and time again because it's play, it's not work. And I guess that's the crux of the matter. So this will be everything for today's video, but it won't be everything for today's topic. I went over the time that I wanted, and I had to split this into 2 parts. So if you want to check that out, there should be a link about right now somewhere, or if not, you can just check my channel to check it. Okay, see you soon.